All right.
It's
Well,
also, oh, sorry.
no, go ahead.
No, it's also like saying, you can't, it's hard to generalize with like a Soho or Tribeca or Brooklyn, because nothing from the past is the same way it is today, but it doesn't mean it loses all the magic from the past. There's still artists and writers there. There's still a lot of people that there are very good public schools there. So there are a lot of people who have somewhat normal jobs and live very, sort of normal, not fancy lives, in these towns. It's not like I'm in Nantucket or Martha's Vineyard where they're almost exclusively vacation communities. I think these are very much year-round thriving towns, and villages.
It's still fun when you see Ralph Lauren or Paul McCartney walking around.
Of course.
But John, it's also changed. COVID made it more of a more full cycle year-round environment there. A lot of the commercial properties, the retail properties are now full year-round, whereas I would say a smaller percentage of people shut down for the entire season. There's commerce there.
That's a good point. The Arc property that my brother-in-law and sister have, they were renting it during COVID for a family of 4 in New York City that came out there and had their groceries delivered and everything. And they got $80,000 a month for it.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I want to share my screen. I want to kick it off. Episode 49, the current state of the Manhattan marketplace. Although we've begun the show talking about the Hamptons, and apparently the bloom is not off the rose in the Hamptons. But I want to begin by introducing our guests, Mike Lubin and Matthew Cohen, both of Brown Harris Stevens, 2 of the most successful agents in all of New York. And with that, welcome.
Yes.
How are you doing?
Thanks for having us.
And it was just personally fascinating to me that Roberto, Matt, Mike, and Scott, and Meredith, the first 5 people to join the show, all have a connection to the Hamptons. And what I hear you saying was, although it's changed during COVID, it hasn't changed necessarily for the worse for you. It's become more of a year-round community, but it's still a place where you can get out to and escape to. So I guess the flip side of that question is, well, how has it affected New York? Because if everybody is continuing to escape New York and spending more time in places like the Hamptons, is New York back? And can you guys comment on the bounce back of New York City?
What do you, Matthew?
Yeah, I guess I'll start. So when COVID first started, and what March, April of 2020, throughout the end of 2020, people would constantly ask me, so how's New York? I hear everyone's moving out. Are you okay? Is your business okay? And what was really interesting for me was, what I was seeing, like what the optics were versus what the reality was, which the reality of my business, at least, was that there were really not many people who were moving out, and anyone who was moving out of the city was moving to Brooklyn. So I had, 25% of my entire clientele move from Manhattan to Brooklyn during 2020 and in the beginning of 2021.
25%?
25%. Yeah.
Wow.
Really all over the city. It was a pretty vast trend I saw. And then I'm still seeing it, but it's at a lot smaller of a percentage. But that was really most of the move out, quote unquote. I know an article came out eventually in the New York Times, but I had more people in my personal business move to New York during COVID than move, quote unquote, out of it.
I'd say with regard to the Hamptons, I had a good number of clients who have homes there and moved out there temporarily. And we're sort of experimenting to see, can we relocate our lives? Does this feel, like the right move? And all of them have come back, and they realize that New York is home, but, they very much appreciate being there year round, and I think for a lot of these clients, it was also school oriented, like once schools were back in session, they felt like, we can't replicate the the public or private school experience in the city, and that's where we need to be.
I think it's very much a co-primary residence environment now. And a lot of people, when they come to New York, even newcomers, are thinking, well, if we come to the city, we need to also going to have to need something outside of the city. So, you know, depending upon budget and whatever category they might be, they might say, well, we'll rent in the city and buy outside of the city, or vice versa. But those are the, you know, this is the type of environment where people feel that they need to have, you know, you come to New York, you almost need two places to live.
Well, so
Yeah.
when they talk to you about a New York apartment, how much is the commute a factor? How important is it that they're on a subway line? How important is it that they, you know, have a space for their car? Are some of these priorities changing?
Definitely the car thing.
Yes.
You know, with just offices working differently and, you know, people working from home, you know, more, that I didn't see a huge subway, as much of a subway emphasis in people's searches, but the car was a big thing. I mean, everyone.
Your clients don't take the subway? Is that what I'm hearing?
I mean, I take this away more than my clients. I found that during like end of 2020, everyone I know started to get a car who normally would not have. Like, I've always had a car in the city, but that's because I have a place outside the city. So it's just easier to do. But, you know, it's an expensive luxury, right? Like, garages are expensive. And what happened during COVID was garages started to get full. They wouldn't take more people. They were increasing prices like crazy. Mine increased so much that I moved garages.
How much is what are we talking about per month for a garage these days in a fancy neighborhood like yours?
A fancy neighborhood like mine. So if you're within 2 blocks of my apartment, the cheapest garage is $1,000 a month.
When I lived on the Upper East Side, I parked 20 blocks away from my apartment. And I would come in and drop everything off in front of the doorman, drive up, take the bus back down. But I was paying $400 a month.
Yeah, they've changed a little bit. I'm on 76 in Park, and so they're very, because you're near the Carlisle, they're very expensive. But I park all the way on First Avenue for $550.
Yeah.
The garage in my building is $975 plus tax. It's on 87 and Park.
Yeah, it's wild.
If you get close to Fifth Avenue, it can be $1,600 a month,
Yeah.
$1,800 a month,
That's an apartment. That's a studio rental.
100%,
Mhm.
100%. And the tax is 18.5% or something. So you have to apply for that discount.
Yeah.
But so let's talk about the market, like where we are and what we're kind of seeing now, and how you feel that it might have changed from last year, because last year was obviously, it was explosive in every single sector all across the board. If anything, maybe studios were struggling slightly. But what is your feeling of the sentiment, et cetera? I'd just love to hear your thoughts.
I'll let Mike start.
Sure, I'll jump in. I would say any type of instability in the world creates a situation where people are more oriented towards creating a home or buying a home. So not only has there been great financial instability, but obviously with the pandemic and with people working from home or being in a hybrid situation, there's so much change happening right now. I find that there is a very strong emotional desire to be in a home, and interest rates don't really seem to be impacting that very much, possibly for first-time buyers, you know, where it could be an extra few $100s a month and that could make a difference. But I know for myself, you know, just the sense of feeling safe and feeling like I love where I live has never been more important. And that feeling of safety and comfort. So that is driving, I think, this very strong activity, as well as a dearth of inventory. You know, we're grateful, you know, I've never seen, I don't know if you guys feel this, I've never seen more emails from agents asking for off-market listings. And I feel like that's only been the past few months, you know, which really speaks to inventory and demand.
Has it caused more of the inventory to be held in the pocket per se? I mean, is that what, because we've all been sensitized to the lack of inventory, we all hold it very close. We tell the agents, are immediately around us, and then we might kind of tell the agents in our office, and because we wanna, I guess, covet every listing before it hits the market and see if we can, do right by it, and then get a really big impact in that first weekend. Is that how it's working now as a result of the scarcity? That's how it's working out here in Connecticut.
So I find that it's a little bit of a juggling act, because if you list apartments as much as Mike and I do, what I will do, for example, is the brokers that I really love and know that they do business in this price point, or know that they do business in this neighborhood, I'll reach out to them and I'll just say to them, hey, I'm going to be putting this on, so it's a nice way to do business and keep business with people that you really like. But the juggling act becomes, you want to do that, but then on the flip side, I've had situations where I have 1 or 2 offers before we list, and my seller, and completely understandable that they want to still list. They're like, this is great, and these are great offers, but in a market where inventory is so low, like, why wouldn't I list and see if we can get some bidding war, see if something crazy can happen? And so I think it's a juggling act,
I am constantly amazed when I get a call from somebody over the internet who said, I'm calling you because you're the listing agent because I think I'm going to get a deal. And I think to myself, that, or do I call the most productive agent in a market, somebody like one of the three of you, because of the perception that you're going to hear about things first. And that if I'm working with you, you'll be able to convey that I'm a reliable buyer and my bid is reliable, and that I've been vetted and I've got a pre-qual letter, and that you're gonna ensure a reliable and smooth transaction. So I watch the two competing impulses every week. I get calls from people who think they're gonna get a better deal from me because I'm the listing agent. Can you comment on whether you're seeing either one of those in the city?
I always prefer to have a good broker on the other end than a direct buyer. The three of us deal with a lot of co-ops, and it's always sensitive and fragile. And I would love to be able to have that buyer have their own team, and we have more than enough to do on our side, to keep people happy and keep things safe. And I think you guys probably feel the same way. It's just try to get to a closing and move on to the next one.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with Mike. I mean, I guess, funny quick story. We all know the wonderful Sarah Rotter. So she's one of my best friends, but she's also my manager. And so nowadays, managers have to be the final person to submit top agents' real trends. So they were doing that like a month ago. And Sarah was looking over all of my transactions for 2021. And she said to me, you don't have one direct in here. That's really disappointing. She's like, it's really disappointing because they count twice, I guess, for real trends. And I push to not have directs. I would much, much rather have another broker. I could care less about the commission. It's not worth it.
And are both of you just listing agents, or do you take out buyers? Or is it 50-50, or where's the split?
Mike, you want to?
They don't have time for buyers.
We're both buyers and sellers. I'm almost 50-50, maybe more sellers, but we're definitely.
You have 27 exclusives. Do you have 27 buyers also?
No, I don't have it any. I feel like, Maddie, you and I are similar in terms of buyer versus seller, right? Would you be? I think we're more seller.
I think so. You're more seller, definitely. Okay. More seller.
I feel like the three of us need to be. This is the new team. It's the Roberto, Maddie, and Mike team. We have to talk offline.
You definitely have more sellers. I would say I'm more like. I sometimes crunch numbers because I'm such a nerd. I would say I'm like 65% buyers.
Okay, I'm more seller.
It's like peanut butter and chocolate. I mean, you guys need to get together.
I think it's also it's always a function of where you are out in your career too, right? So, you know, I think Roberto and I know Mike, you both have been doing it a little longer than I have. And
Are you saying we're old? I think he was just saying that we're old.
definitely,
All
I
right.
mean, if you want to take it that way.
I'm not using the right filter, apparently.
I mean, hey, I'm just about to surpass my 10-year mark, but you guys have definitely been doing it longer, and I
Yes.
think that's just a function of where you get more sellers, and the fact
Sure.
that you just, you know, look so much younger than me.
All right, you're redeemed.
So what do you, let's get back to the market for a second. Do you guys think that it's like what I'm finding, at least with all of my exclusives, I get, like I've had a couple exclusives, I have tremendous number of showings, up to 40 plus showings. And whereas last year, maybe I was getting 4 or 5 offers, I might be getting 2, I might be getting 1. I mean, all you need is 1. But I feel that the actionable buyers, although there's demand is still strong, that the upper crust of actionable buyers is narrowing a bit. Do you feel that at all?
I think a lot of the real buyers bought, you know, like because there was such an active year last year. People are confused. You know, I definitely think the interest rate thing and instability in the world is making people feel confused. So they are motivated, but they're afraid to make the wrong decision. You know, they're not in that panic mode that we've seen over the past couple of years. And it's stupid because we say this all the time, but you do have to be priced right. You know, and even though there's high demand, I have a couple of listings and I know that if the price were adjusted, I could sell it within a few, you know, 2 or 3 weeks. And the price being off 5 to 10% can make that type of difference right now.
Completely agree.
10% is a lot.
Yeah.
But
It's a big myth.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That
I
makes-
completely agree. I mean, I do think that I was having a really interesting conversation with one of my favorite, other than Mike, one of my favorite brokers in the city, Leonard Steinberg. I find his thoughts on things to be very just fascinating. And then we actually had very similar feelings, which was interest rates are definitely it's like a sticker shock. I find that it's sticker shocking people. But then when they run the numbers and they think about it and they think about their lives, they'll usually still make the decision to buy. So we're not there yet where it's a hard stop. But for the market, I'm finding that the 2 issues right now are interest rates and inventory. But I think that inventory is a much worse issue.
And no one wants to rent right now. We all keep saying there's nothing to rent. You know, 3 bedrooms and larger do not exist. Those that are completely overpriced. So, you know, there was a time where people thought, oh, let me rent for 1 or 2 years and wait for the market to settle or find something. Anyone who can buy and wants to buy is really going to do their best to try to make that happen.
Is that because of the interest rate fears? Is that because we've now hit 5? I'm going to share my screen because I'm going to just show you some of the headlines that I've been looking at. New York not that one. Are we in a housing bubble? Will rising mortgage rates cool off a hot housing market? Sales of existing homes fell 2.7% in March. Rising mortgage rates, so they're beating that drum. That's NBC News. Economic shock. That's a tough headline in Fortune. The economic shock hitting the housing market continues to grow, but where it takes us remains uncertain. A lot of uncertainty in these headlines. 4 predictions for the housing market in 2022 from economists and real estate pros. None of them, by the way, are good news. Prediction: rising mortgage rates. Prediction: home prices will go up, but growth will slow. And what home prices will look like in 2023, according to Fannie Mae. And I'll just tell you that after going up 19%, they expect that they'll go up in 2022 10%. And Bank of America, I think was the last one I looked at, is predicting 5%. So we're going to go from a 20% nationally to a 10% this year nationally, to a 5% nationally. So I guess my point is, if this is the headlines that consumers are hearing every day, that mortgage rates are going to affect you, prices are going to continue to rise for 2 more years, and it's not going to get better for you for the next 2 years. Is that why they're saying, I'm not going to rent? I have to bite the bullet and buy the best house I can, best condo or co-op I can right now.
Well, keep in mind, in the New York market, buyers put down 25%. So it's hard to compare us to these other markets where someone might be looking to finance 90 or 100% of their housing. And I'm finding buyers looking to put more down so that their monthly nut isn't bigger than they want it to be, but not getting out of the market. So I think it's a little bit different if you're putting 25 to 50, 50% down and your rate is now 4% versus 2 7/8. It doesn't have the same impact if you're financing more. So I think that's a little bit different about our market and how it may compare to the national trend.
We have to put down 20% out here in Connecticut. I think 20% is fairly standard. And so 25%, not so different. Mortgage rates just went from 4 to 5 last week. And so are you saying that that's imparting a sense of urgency on your buyers? Are your buyers who were thinking about it in January and February now saying, all right, I have to make a decision?
Well, I think what Mike was trying to say is that just maybe not Connecticut, maybe not the tri-state area, but a lot of the country does still put down 10 to 15%. So you still have these, companies like Rocket Loans and, that's really the only one I can think of offhand, but those smaller shops that will, do that and don't have to abide by, Fannie Mae guidelines. So I think that's more where Mike was thinking. But,
Yes.
Also, if you're in New York, I find that most people are very smart. Now, that's a very general sentence that I just said. But for the most part, so like I used to work in investment banking, so I have a lot of finance clients, and all of them are very in tune with the economists these days and what they're just showing. And so they understand that right now, yes, interest rates are 5 to 5.5% for a 30-year, but at the end of the year, we might be seeing a 7 to 8% interest rate based on inflation and what's going on in the world. So, it's one of those things where, the market might also go, down a little bit and soften a little bit, but your interest rate is also going to get higher. So it's this flip-flop of which one do you act on? And kind of what Mike was saying is definitely the difference here. I don't know how it is in Connecticut, but in New York, the rental market is just ridiculous. It's completely inflated. It's, more than just our sale listings, our rental listings, we put them on the first day, we get multiple offers, even if they're completely overpriced. And it's great for our landlords, but it's terrible for tenants and for people out there. And, anyone who's out there, like Mike said, if they can, they're going to try to buy because of it.
Yeah.
Also, I don't think that the demand is so strong with the supply being suppressed that there's no bubble here. And also, we've not had any sort of spiking of pricing. Our pricing is gradually rising. And I see that it's going to help. I think it's going to do that in a very healthy manner over the next 3-4 years. So I don't see any sort of bubble happening here.
All right, I'm going to get real specific. I'm 55. All my classmates out here in Connecticut, we all graduated. We all had kids in our late 20s. All those kids are turning about 25 now. They don't want to be in Connecticut. They are all racing into the city. And they are now complaining to me and my sister and Meredith and everybody and Scott, right? Scott, you've got 2 boys, right? They want to be in Connecticut? No, they want New York apartments. My daughters want New York apartments. They all want to go to New York. Do you have advice for us and our 25-year-old kids who want to get their first apartment? What I'm hearing, and Meredith just put it in the chat window, that all these kids, young professionals, she calls them, I call them kids, these young professionals are seeing that their rent is being jacked up a lot. And
Basically, that's right, John. Basically, they're in an apartment and during COVID, their landlord said, you know what, I'm going to give you a little deal so you stay, so you don't go hang out with your parents for the next 2 years. And now they're jacking up the rent so high. I have a niece that works for Ralph Lauren, and she's going to take the summer to be in the Hamptons and then stay with me out in Rowayton and not pay rent until the fall. She's going to figure it out in the fall. But right now, she can't even afford what they're coming back to her with.
Yeah.
so they can't get, you're telling me they can't afford to compete with 10 other people for that apartment, and they can't afford to stay and watch their rent get jacked up. So do they then go look at other, like, do they look at Queens? Do they look at like North Harlem? I mean, do they look for to move into more affordable neighborhoods?
I was suggesting
Are they
Upper East
winning?
Side, and they're like, that's not the cool place. We can't go to the Upper East Side.
Well, hold on. First of all, as
Cliff,
let me
There's a lot to unpack there.
Oh.
so I just turned 32. So as a somewhat young person, I live on 76 and Park. I love the Upper East Side.
you're
I
in a
actually
fantastic neighborhood.
Yeah, I find that actually I'm on like the stodgy side, that once you go east of Lex, it's really cool. Like that's where all the really young people are. So I'll say, before I bought my apartment in Chelsea, and now I own my place on the Upper East Side, but I lived in West Harlem, and that was many, many years ago. And I'll say I loved it. And my big suggestion to people is, renting sucks. We've all been there. You're throwing money out the window, but it's a means to an end. And so if you're gonna rent, go to, like, especially if you're young, go to Harlem. It's so great. There's a neighborhood, there's parks, there's great restaurants and bars. The rents are so much lower than anywhere else, even Brooklyn, like much lower. And you have every single subway you can ever imagine on 125th. It's incredible. And what many people don't know is that the subway from 125th, the Express, the A and the D, they go straight from 125th all the way to Columbus Circle. That's like, that's 60 something blocks in one fell swoop. So do that, or move to Bushwick, and where you're really not going to get a deal anymore.
You're saying there's still deals in Harlem?
Yeah. We actually, I have a bunch of investors that invested in the same building, and they all bought 2 beds, and we rented them all out within a day or two for, 2 bed, 2 bath in a full service building for, I'm trying to think of what we rented for, like just under $4,000 a month.
And what
Wow,
street?
that was a
What
good
street
deal.
was it?
So there are 2 of them, but one was on 120th and one was on 137th, which sounds high, but it's actually, if you're familiar, it's right next to Strivers Row, which is where all the CEOs and very wealthy people and like finance people have brownstones. It's a beautiful area.
What
Is
if
that
I want
like
to buy?
Upper West?
What if
Wait.
I want to buy 2-bedroom, 2-bath that you described, that $4,000 rental on 135th Street? What's the difference?
Yeah, you're talking about, they're still good deals up there. You're talking about just under $1 million. And this building in particular actually has a 25-year tax abatement, one of the last in the city. So your taxes are like $7 a month.
What building is that?
The Rennie. It's actually a BHS building. Funny.
Oh, it
enough.
is.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So what your kids should do is encourage the 2 of you to create an LLC and buy a condo, and then they can both live in there.
That's right.
Goals.
I had no idea that Matthew Cohen was closer in age to my kids than he is to me by a
I
lot.
always say, don't get swayed by my hair loss and gray hair.
I guess you come across as so experienced, and it doesn't necessarily translate to old. Okay.
That's what people say about Mike Lubin.
Wow. So $4,000 a month, I can still get a 2-bedroom apartment in Harlem, or under $1 million, I can still get in Harlem. And okay. All right. And you're saying that their availability, or they get scooped up and there's competition for every one of them at that level?
It depends. You got to know the right people. So I would say if you're interested, definitely reach out to Tracy Guberman. She's amazing. She's the director of sales there, and she'll give you everything you need.
If you think you just whispered in my ear, you do know that this goes out over the internet.
I know. As I was saying it, I was looking at the people watching.
Tracy's going to get some calls. You've got to
There
get
you
some
go.
referral fees.
So guys, what do you think is going to happen come summer, come fall?
Mike, do you want to?
How's it going to change?
So I guess, I mean, I could start if you want.
Please.
Yeah, I mean, how's it going to change? I think what's been really interesting about COVID is that it's brought everyone's true colors out, in my opinion. So that's on both a personal and social standpoint, and also on a professional client standpoint. So I find that there's always those clients that are just trepidatious no matter what is going on, and COVID really made them just anxious. And I have a lot of clients who bought last year in 2021 who were ready to buy in 2020 and should have bought in 2020, and they kicked themselves a little bit because we were so down. And I can speak from firsthand experience. I bought a new apartment. I closed on it in December of 2020. And, my thought was the world
Brilliant.
is falling apart. Like
Right.
the world,
That's the best timing ever.
right. I was like,
Perfect
the world's
timing.
falling apart, it has to come back at some point. So let's just do it. And, and look at what happened. So I think what's coming up is I think you're going to still have those people going into the increase in interest rates. I think you're going to have people who are a little scared and nervous and will wait it out a little bit. I think you will also have people who, Roberto, to your point, like there's a lot of people who I know and clients of mine who needed to get second homes because that whole idea of space is really important. And I think they're going to utilize their first summers in their second homes this summer. And I think you're going to have a lot of people who are out to lunch this summer and just not transacting. And buyers who are going to transact, I think are going to do very well, especially because I think inventory is going to still struggle on the resale side, but developers who were halted during COVID, the construction was halted until the beginning of 2021. There's going to be a bunch of projects that are launching the rest of this year, and that will be interesting for inventory.
Mike?
I think we're going to see an even greater tightening of inventory. I think we're seeing more people moving to the city. I think we're going to see more people looking to buy who are afraid that, as you've said, John, rates going higher, inventory shrinking. They missed the window in 2020. They don't want to, miss the window of 2022 or 23. They finally want to be settled. And, we're never going to see a dump of inventory on, in Manhattan, other than maybe, when you have a new development that comes to market and suddenly 100 units in one building. There isn't going to be one day, 20 new classic sixes on West End. We see this trickling out, almost a couple at a time. But yet we see more and more people moving to the city. The same people, John, who you're saying, the young professionals who want to move in. We could also say, there are empty nesters who want to move in, or people who moved out 3 years ago. I'm doing a deal now for a couple who moved to Scarsdale 3 years ago, and their daughter is now 10, and they are desperate to get back into the city and put her in school on the Upper West Side. So we have so many different groups of people looking to move here with such limited inventory, with no reason why there will be a bloom of inventory. I think we're going to continue to see more of the same, less inventory, strong demand, and prices have to be right. But it will, for my opinion, the buyer's market, that brief window that Maddie brilliantly bought into, I don't know that we're going to see anything other than a seller's market. Maybe ever, who knows? But nowhere near, and nothing changing in the next year, certainly from my perspective.
I was going to ask, where do they move from? And are they moving because any particular industry or job sector is on the rebound? Everybody's been predicting the demise of the financial sector, Wall Street, for a very long time. And I know the hospitality business has been suffering for the last couple of years in Manhattan. So I wanted to ask, what's motivating people to move into New York, and where are they moving from? You know, you answered that a bit by saying the empty nesters. And I think that's interesting because you're right. All the empty nesters who are selling their houses in Connecticut because finally the market is back. I can sell my house in Darien for $3 million. I don't need this big house anymore because my kids have moved on. And you know what? Now is my chance to move back into Manhattan and go buy, you know, and be in the Manhattan, because I'm done with a 6,000, 8,000 square foot house in Connecticut. So I
Yeah,
get
buy
that.
1,000 square feet in the city, have a home in Florida, a place in the Hamptons, small footprints in different communities. I'm seeing Aspen. Suddenly everyone wants to have something in Colorado, you know, West Coast. You know, I think people want lifestyle now.
Ranches.
How many of our clients are now going to be full-time at the office? You know, so if you could be in finance or law, or very few jobs require that in-person presence, why not have smaller homes in 3 or 4 cities around the country? That sounds like paradise to me, you know, and relocating throughout the year based on where you want to be. You know, I'm seeing much more of that. It's lifestyle more than ever.
Yeah, and another really fun trend that I'm experiencing is just the tech world. You know, I am blessed to have a lot of tech clients, and you know, I've seen a lot of them. Not I've seen, but I've helped a lot of them move to the city from the Bay Area. You know,
Yes.
with Google building their new campus in Hudson Square, which is enormous. If you have like a few minutes one day with nothing to do, just walk all the way west and go check it out. It is insane how huge it is, like insane. But so a lot of Google people, I have a lot of Facebook people, you know, with the Hudson Yards presence, with their Brooklyn presence now. I've had a couple Amazon people, because Amazon is basically like completely getting rid of their presence on the West Coast and then basically moving to the tri-state area primarily. So that's been where I'm seeing a lot of movement. But John, kind of like I was saying earlier, this Brooklyn trend is bigger than ever. I mean, Mike and I are excited.
Oh my God.
Yeah, we're doing an amazing deal right now together, and it was wild. I mean, you know,
Why
Mike,
Brooklyn?
how many offers do you have?
Why Brooklyn? Because it feels like a neighborhood and it feels cute and old fashioned. I mean, what is it about Brooklyn? And is it the tech people who look for Brooklyn first? Is it the artists?
So
It's everything. It's
Yeah.
everything.
Is this the townhouse?
yes.
Have you seen the video for the townhouse, John?
No.
Extraordinary.
You want to
Yeah.
share the screen? Go ahead.
No.
Beautiful.
But he doesn't need to sell it anymore.
True. No, but Mike, how many offers did you have on the house? Over 20?
Close to 20. We stopped showing. We listed a house. I listed a house in Prospect Heights. Maddie was one of the few people, you know, gave a heads up. One of the few people, you know, who saw it early. I'll put this out publicly. You brought your people in before we listed. You know, I said we offered it to the company, you know, just for a few agents coming in. 2 days of showing, Sunday and Monday. We went to final bids on Wednesday at 12. We had close to 20 offers, and we stopped showing after Tuesday, and well over the ask. And John, you asked, you know, who's moving there. It sounds like I'm making this up, but it's almost like a filmic kind of cinematic way of living. You know, you're within a couple of blocks from shopping and cafes and restaurants. You're in a house with a garden. You have transportation. You have Prospect Park. You have great public and private schools. You have tree-lined streets. You're not talking 10 or 15 or $20 million. You're talking about the price of an apartment on the Upper West or Upper East Side that you'll never outgrow, with outdoor space, with nice neighbors who all know each other, with a block association. It is an idyllic way to live. That almost you can't compare it to anything else, where you don't ever have to have a country house or a car. and raise, these were families, so people who need size, 4,000 feet of
Wait, the
living
reality
space.
matches the dream. The kids are playing stickball in the street. Mom is sitting
It's
on the front stoop.
it's kind of like
very
that.
like
I hate to say it.
What was the price point?
4 or 5 asking, and
How
we
many-
had
how
all of
many-
the offers were over 5. Every offer was over 5.
Every offer was over 5. How many offers
Yeah.
were cash?
Cash, people were financing, and cash played no factor in it. No one was contingent upon financing. A couple of cash offers, but people were financing, and it wasn't like we underpriced, but it was a house that didn't need to be renovated and had a lot of Brooklyn authentic history. So that was helpful, and a beautiful 80-foot long garden. So there were certain things that made it very special and unique, but that product does not exist in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
A renovated house under $10 million or $8 million, near shopping, near transportation, without 2 or 3 years of work, it's almost impossible to find.
It's also location.
Yeah.
Brooklyn, more than Manhattan even, is all about location, because, like the neighborhood we're talking about is Prospect Heights. And so Prospect Heights, Park Slope, Cobble Hill, Carroll Gardens, these are amazing neighborhoods. To Mike's point, they have great schools, but very quickly they change block to block. So it's, if you have a product on a specific block, it's gonna be a whirlwind, and in the best way possible. But I did an interview sometime last year, and I really like it. I'm gonna coin this saying, but during COVID, I really think that people have gained such an appreciation in New York for space and
Yeah.
space. So I say those two because space in a home. So just getting more space, obviously, like going from a 2 to a 3 bedroom or a 1 to a 2 bedroom, but also another kind of space. All these clients of mine that moved to Brooklyn, they were just with COVID, they didn't want to share elevators. They didn't want to walk outside on the sidewalk and be plummeted with people. They wanted their personal space as well. And Brooklyn gives you that. Brooklyn gives you quiet side streets. It's not bustling unless you're in downtown Brooklyn, which I just consider Manhattan. It's very known to most people out there that my plan is to move to this area of Park Slope called South Slope once I start raising my kids. So I couldn't agree with Mike more. It's like a movie set.
Yeah, it really is. John, we're going to get you to Brooklyn.
Scott Hobbs, you renovate apartments, condos, co-ops, townhouses. Is one of the reasons people are looking at townhouses because it's easier to renovate? And you talked to me about the difficulty of trying to renovate in one of those skyscrapers. Is that a factor that's driving people to Brooklyn and Harlem?
It could be harder to renovate a townhouse. I'd say it's harder because you have structural details that you would never go through with an apartment, and the DOB is so backed up. Everything you do in a house is DOB oriented. In an apartment, you could do refreshes or more modest work and not have to get into the DOB. I would say it could be harder. And these are all 100+ years old homes. You're buying post-war 50s, 60s co-ops. You're not dealing with the same electric and plumbing upgrades and asbestos and lead. It's crazy. That's why the premium is there. It's easily 2 or 3 years with
Also
permits and materials.
Also, very few houses in Brooklyn, let's call them brownstones, however you want to label them, are not single family. So most of them,
that's a huge point.
Right. Most of them are 2 to 3 families. So people who come in, if they want to convert that, or it takes so many permits and just even combining it to make it livable with the staircase and these pre-war, it's a really big undertaking.
Yeah.
Renovations of townhouses are not for the faint of heart. And mentioned, because a lot of them are so old, in order to get something of a little bit more of a modern floor plan and design, you end up gutting them. And so, and not unusual to go down. So you have a whole bunch of underpinning. So, I mean, at the end of the day, you end up with something really spectacular. And again, people choose to do this and you got a great product at the end, but it is not for the faint of heart.
Oh, no.
Didn't you just do a Brooklyn townhouse for somebody? I thought we talked about this.
No, we actually, I mean, we haven't done anything in Brooklyn because it's one of the kind of jokes is you actually can't get there. It's hard to get there. Now, if you're set up for Brooklyn, then obviously Brooklyn is great, but either you have sort of a Manhattan focus or a Brooklyn, some guys work in both, but a lot of people are much more specialized.
So it was a Manhattan townhouse that you just did.
Yes.
Easier to get permits?
Well, interestingly, in New York is the builder's not really at all responsible for the permits. I mean, there's a whole expediter industry to get permits, and that ought to tell you something. So industry around getting permits, it's not, again, a simple process. There is a process. People know how to do it. You can get it done. It's not a simple one.
So Mike, Matthew, what's the difference between done and a project? Are you able to move a project and done equally well in this market? We've been talking about a great market, a seller's market, equally good for the projects?
Well, on the one hand, so there's a very easy answer to that question, but who wants an easy answer? So definitely in this market, done is selling much better. Turnkey all the way. But having said that, New York is one of those places where I find that a deal is a deal. Like someone who sees a deal has to have it. And if they psychologically think it's a deal, I hate that word, I'm going to keep using it. They are going to buy it, whether it needs a complete gut or not. But Turnkey is moving a lot better in the city because not as much about the backlog that DOB has right now, which is a factor, don't get me wrong, but everyone is just thinking about materials. I have a bunch of different clients who are buying apartments that are actually being renovated for them. And funny enough, they're not even in new developments. I am lucky to work with this sponsor and he will let people be part of the process. It's very cool, but they are so delayed because of materials. Everything is back ordered between, as simple as cabinetry and just planks of wood or appliances. It's so back ordered. So, if someone wants to do the work, they have to have the time, number one. They have to be able to digest the materials being a lot more expensive because they're harder to get. And they have to have a place to live for the span of the time it's going to take. So that's a lot of money.
And I find that people don't have the headspace for it now. I think most everyone I know feels so inundated by life right now. The idea of, to me, like I want to go pick out, drawer pulls, and a couple towels. And that sounds like a fun project on a house. I mean, just the thought of starting from scratch, just personally, and I'm very creative, and Maddie, you and I love design. I'm sure Roberto, you do too, just from what I've known of you. But it's, when have we had less time?
It's a lot.
To ourselves.
The house, anything that needs a substantial amount of work is selling for a 25% discount. And that was John Walkup from Urban Digs did a study of that. I mean, they're suffering.
Yeah,
I think that the press on that is outstrips the reality. I just heard Matthew say things like "so delayed." I mean, really drew out that so delayed and so frustrated. Scott Hobbs, is the reality quite as bad as the headlines as Matthew's so bad?
Scott waited a year for a refrigerator.
Look, the supply chain is broken and everyone knows that across the whole industry. But, luckily with economics, low prices have a way of solving issues. High prices have a way of solving issues. And right now, I mean, the building business is booming in New York. I'm doing a bunch of renovations. And as you get the discounts on stuff in good locations that can be spectacular and you got to spend a year or 2 years under the renovation, or you got to pay a super premium and you can move in tomorrow, it's different people. And they figure things out and they have different parts of their lives and some value that custom feel and making it their own. Others, it's just, I can live wherever the curtains make the difference, the curtains in the furniture make the difference.
Scott, are you as busy as ever in Manhattan? Like if you had 2 or 3 more projects that came your way, can you take them?
I mean, there's always a flow of things, and the hardest part for us to try to figure out is when does something actually start? Because, you know, everyone comes in and says, oh, we've got to start tomorrow. And you're like, yeah. Where are you in the process? What approvals do you have? Have you gone through your boards? Have you done whatever? What's up with the design? So, I mean, we're very busy right now, as long as the projects that we have in our backlog are real, because again, people change their minds under stuff, then we're very busy. At the same time, stuff changes. People change their mind and they decide to do something different.
John, let me give you, just so you don't think I'm being dramatic, let me give you
He's so dramatic.
so dramatic. I'm gonna just, that's gonna be my new thing. So here are two examples. I have a client who is buying in a new development, signing his contract actually tomorrow. Like shockingly a great new development in Park Slope in Brooklyn. There you go. Here's the trend. The developer is offering a credit at closing because the glass shower door to the master bathroom is on back order until November. So there's one example, and another one, like, I do new developments. It's a big part of my business, and my newest project we were supposed to launch in February, and we're not launching until June because of supply chain issues. So that's a good example.
But what I hear from the builders is, I can build you a house, but we're going to be missing one thing. We're going to miss that towel rack or that shower door or the hinges. I can't tell you what we're going to be missing, but there's going to be one or two things at the end that we just can't get. And some of my builders, I'm getting a lot of calls on listings now, and they're like, can I move in this year? If I can move in this year, that's good enough. If you haven't even started it yet, if it's just a paper listing, a drawing of a house, yeah, forget it. You know, too far out. But I would say that my buyers are willing for new construction to wait a year for it. But if I'm talking 2 years out, it's sort of too far away.
But do you think that's a suburb thing?
No, I think that's across the whole country. It's really hard to imagine what life's going to be after COVID, right? Where we were all going to be done within the year, and 3 years later we're not. I think people do not want to try and predict what 3 years, 2, 3, 4 years is going to ahead is going to look like. They're like, I want to move to New York, and I want to do it this year. And I want to move to Connecticut, and I want to do it this year.
Well, wait, let me rephrase this year thing. Like, they're okay as long as it's this year, like as long as it's like in the fall, for example.
Yeah, or even spring of 2023. They want to see it. They want to be able to track it. They don't want to be talking about fall of 2023. Too far out. I'll keep looking.
Yeah, because in the city, I find that people just can't even wait that long. Like, I have trouble with people if a project.
You guys are New Yorkers. You guys are on a different clock.
We just move fast.
We have no patience for anything.
No patience. I wanted to show the perfect project to clients of mine that would be done in September. They could not wait until September. You know, I'm like, it's May next week. You know, I find it's hard. I don't find, especially in new development in the city, that people are willing to wait and buy off plans anymore. They really want it to be either done or done enough that they can start to see it.
I have a pair of houses going up across town in 18 months. And I've talked to Scott Hobbs periodically. 18 months is as fast as a house goes up, right? In Greenwich, New Canaan, Darien. Whether it's a $30 million house or a $5 million house, you know, I mean, tell me if I'm wrong, Scott, but I think one of his expertises is that he's able to marshal enough resources and all the expertise and all the trades to be able to build your $18 million house in 18 months or your $5 million house in 18 months, but you can't get it done in 9 months. No matter how much money you throw at it, it's just can't be done, right, Scott?
No, and you can't, and things have changed and become much more difficult. That whatever used to be 12 months is now 14 to 16, and 16 is now 20. And so stuff has actually just, you know, everyone's very, very busy, and the supply chain is messing with things.
And any builder who tells you otherwise is lying.
Yeah, yes.
So let me ask you, you could put up a $30 million-ish house in 18 some months, but let's just say,
No, but it would take longer than that. I mean, the 30 million is probably around a 24-month type project.
okay, but so let me ask you, let's just say there's a house, Upper East Side, Park Block, that's 8,000 to 10,000 square feet, needs to be gutted, E70s, whatever. And it's, someone pays 1920 for it. They're looking to spend 8 million, 10 million on the house, ends up being a $30 million house. How long does that take? More than 2 years?
There's a little bit more uniqueness about New York City properties than say a new house in the suburbs. But I mean, you got a long planning process, and if you do all of your planning correctly and you've made your decisions, you've ordered things, and you're not held up, you're 12 to 18 months. If the decision process isn't made and you run into stuff that's worse, I mean, you can add a year. I mean, and it all just really, and then the finishes also depend on it. That it's not unusual that New York City actually gets some higher level finishes than stuff out in the suburbs. And some of those finishes require a different sequencing and they just take longer.
Yeah. Okay. Guys, are you guys having trouble with managing agents? Like, it used to be that managing agents were so slow because there was so much refi activity and they were just so busy, filling out questionnaires, et cetera, et cetera. Now the refi business is gone because interest rates are up and everybody's got better rate than what's out there. But what I'm finding is, in some of these competitive situations, you send out a contract. Listen, you have 5 business days with which to return the contract of sale, et cetera, et cetera. And then, you get to day 5, they're like, we haven't heard from the managing agent. They haven't, sent us back the questionnaire, et cetera, on, due diligence. And it drags to day 9 into the second week. And you have backup offers that you don't want to lose. Are you guys encountering that?
It's a nightmare. It's 2 weeks today on a property in Harlem, a condo, waiting for a questionnaire. It costs $450.
2 weeks.
2 weeks, $450 for a 2-page generic questionnaire that we still have not gotten back. The momentum with the deal is gone. The people haven't seen it for 3 weeks. Who knows what else they're thinking about or seeing. It's unbelievable. And there's no accountability. We're totally, beholden to the, and it's unbelievable. It really can break a deal, just, waiting for that questionnaire or financials, why not having,
Why the delay?
just-
Is it because everybody's working out of their house in the Hamptons?
Deal volume is
no,
high.
not these people.
Deal volume is very, very high, but they all need to hire more people.
They're understaffed. They're very understaffed. And
I'm having like a spectrum right now, in the sense of, to Mike's point, I have some deals that are just, they're like, managing agent is awful, non-responsive, takes weeks, but on the flip side, I actually have a couple deals where the managing agent is amazing, like incredible, like more responsive than we are. I mean,
yeah, it happens.
so,
It's
like,
rare.
So there's definitely no middle. There's no middle, but
Yeah.
I will say, I think with the managing agents that are just so unresponsive and slow, the right attorney will always get it done. Like, I just find that so many attorneys on the other side of deals of mine, they will contact us like a week into having a contract out, and they'll say, we still are waiting on the minutes, or we're still
Oh, I
waiting.
love that.
Yeah, we're still waiting on the questionnaire.
You're
And I'm
telling
like,
me. Yeah.
I'm like, how have you tried reaching out to the managing agent? And they'll forward us their emails that they've sent. And I'm like, just so I know I may be young, but have you tried calling the managing agent? Like truly. And then we call 5 minutes later and they answer. And it's like, I don't understand. Yeah.
And they don't copy us, and they're sending things to the wrong people.
Yeah.
That's why you're so successful, because you pick up the phone.
The 3 of us are hands-on neurotic deal makers, or it
All right.
doesn't get done.
I want to end the show on a high note. I want to end it with a non sequitur. I want to know what each of you is looking forward to as we're hitting summer. It's supposed to be getting warmer. The grass is greening up. What are you looking forward to? I'll start. Ready? The Mets are back, and I'm looking forward to putting the boat in the water and going down to Citi Field on the boat and catching a Mets game
Wow.
some afternoon. That's what I'm looking forward to in 2022. What are you guys looking forward to and hopefully it's a New York thing that you're looking for. That's what I'm looking for here. What are you looking forward to in New York in 2022?
New York City.
I know you want to say Hamptons, but try and focus on New York City here.
How about this? I belong to a golf club just outside the city. I'm a big golfer. And so not a lot of people know this, but I'm fine being open about it now. I had a pretty bad brain injury last year, and I actually couldn't physically play golf last summer. So I'm really excited to get back on the course this summer. There you go.
All right. Mike? Roberto?
That is a great question. I will say personally, I posted about this, being in nature, being outdoors is very important to me. And one of the things that I have mastered from my perspective is creating 2 or 3 day trips. Because in our job, with our job, it's very hard to go away for a long period of time. I feel like I can go anywhere in the world for 2 or 3 days. I primarily keep it in this country, have an experience, and come back and feel completely refreshed and recharged. So I'm going back. I'm from California. I'm going to be in California for a couple of days. I'm going to go to Colorado for a couple of days. And then, of course, 3 of us, very gratefully are on Long Island. So I can't wait to get back on Shelter Island. That's my sanctuary.
John Roberto, just so you know, I'm waiting for an invite from Mr. Mike Lubin to go on one of these out west excursions where he doesn't talk to anyone.
We'll talk. We're having lunch on Tuesday. We'll talk about it.
There you go.
Well, Roberto, are you looking forward to anything that's actually within the confines of the 5 boroughs?
Not really. I can't wait to go out to the Hamptons.
Yeah, we're tired, John.
This is supposed to be a pitch on New York. New York is back, baby.
It's the best place ever. It just is. You always
Elizabeth,
come back home.
Are you looking forward to anything in 2022 that actually is in New York?
I'm looking forward to live events inside of New York without a mask and without the vaccine checks.
Like Broadway is back. I'm very excited about that.
Sure.
Right? The
Sure.
Nets haven't lost yet. That's going on. There's a lot to be excited about in New York in 2022.
I mean, I would be so excited in New York City if I lived in Roberto's apartment.
Thank you.
I mean, come on.
I'm still waiting for the invite, by the way.
Yeah, what's going on? But hold
It's really
on.
just a screen. It really is.
It looks,
I tried to say, let's do the Zoom from your place. That didn't work. All right.
it looks so perfectly staged. There's no way you live like that.
It's my wife. It's not me.
Uh-huh.
I mean,
Definitely
can
not
you come
me.
clean my apartment?
The cleaning lady comes on Thursday.
Well,
There's the secret. There
Thank
it
you
is.
all. I actually got to, I should tell all of you, I got to meet Roberto and see that apartment for the first time last week.
Right.
After doing this show with Roberto for 2 years, I actually went to that apartment. I got to see what's going on just off camera. And I got to tell you, it's just as spectacular.
Yes.
Then we
no
went,
doubt.
and then we went, a block away to the apartment that the super secret, highly exclusive apartment that you're about to list on 69th Street. Did I just blow your secret? I
Yeah, a
think.
little bit.
Okay, but it's coming. It's coming.
It's coming.
And now the internet knows that you've got a hot property on West 69th.
I do.
You heard it here first.
Okay.
And
I
this
think
guy
that's-
drives a Tesla at 100 miles an hour down the
Uh-huh.
down Hampshire.
This is his first time, I think, in a Tesla. And he goes, "Oh, this is kind of cool." I was like, "Watch this, Roberto."
No, but
You
it
have a
was
Tesla?
serious acceleration. That's frightening.
Tesla, to me, all I hear when I hear Tesla is suburbs. Suburbs.
That's my middle name.
But the point is, you don't hear anything.
Right.
You literally
So
just,
weird.
I mean, it was wild.
Yeah.
Anyhow, guys, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you, man.
Thank you for welcoming
Matthew,
us.
you were due. Mike, you did a good job.
This was,
Thank you,
this
guys.
was
Always.
fun. And I'm glad we had a good laugh and a great hour of great content. Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much.
Great fun.
Thank you for having us.
Take good care.
Bye,
Thank you
everyone.
guys.